Hey, this is Notser, and we have a user replay from FLX_. They are playing in the Tier 7 US Destroyer Mahan on the map New Dawn. You can send in replays to notserreplay@gmail.com. Okay, I'm just teasing. notserreplay@gmail.com. 1 to 2 sentences summary, the replay file, and a couple screenshots for the end score screen, the damage screen, the total information, the team scores, that sort of thing. FLX is currently headed straight for C. They really like being zoomed in on the ship. This is a little weird to me. At first I was like, am I actually seeing their perspective? Yes, I am. So, eventually, we're going to hit C, and it's in the Mahan after the changes. So I was excited to see this replay just because I cannot currently afford, or justify, I can't justify purchasing a Mahan when I have so many other things I need to buy with in-game currency. So it's always nice for players to fill in some of those gaps. And I really appreciate that everyone submitted replays. Maybe your replay will be shared eventually. It's just, this is a really good game. And it's really entertaining because it has torpedoes. And I love torpedoes. So, it looks like the enemy is headed for C also. A friendly destroyer appears to be capturing B. There are a lot of enemy destroyers. A lot. 5 enemy destroyers. So, 100% there's a destroyer headed for C. It's just, the numbers game tells you that you're going to run into a counterpart to you. We see an enemy York, enemy Kuma, and an enemy Nicholas shows up. Okay. He is either in stealth, has smoke, or for some reason he showed up and then hid for half a second. But he's back. And FLX is engaging the Nicholas. He's able to knock out his propulsion. The Nicholas uses his damage control, of course. It's vitally important that you keep that up. And they're both fighting over C. No one's going to actually capture until one is dead. So it's like Gladiator. Who's going to survive? Well, FLX is already really far ahead, plus he has friendlies that are firing on the enemy Nicholas. The enemy Nicholas actually dropped torpedoes in the water, but there's a huge island in the way. He's not going to have success. Unfortunately for FLX, he cannot finish off the Nicholas. The island's in the way. It's just high enough that he cannot fire on the enemy, and friendlies finish off the enemy Nicholas. He can now successfully capture this base, although the enemy can fire on his position, so he's holding his fire. Yes, he's dropped off. And he's chosen to use his smoke, so now he's sitting in his smoke, not moving from it, and he requires his allies to detect these ships in order to engage them. But once the allies do detect them, that's free damage that can't be answered, and they're about to capture C. The B point that was initially captured by an ally is actually recaptured by the enemy. So the enemy has 2-to-1 odds that destroyer kill, and initially holding B has allowed his team to be ahead slightly. And unfortunately he's detected now. I believe he slightly moved out of the smoke. He didn't remain directly in the center, and he's moving away, obviously. Enemy Samson, a tier 2 ship in a tier 7 game? What the? And the Murmansk is in the way. They're gonna avoid. Okay, they're good. He incapacitated steering. He probably is going to either have to use damage control or he's gonna slam into that island. Either way, he's pretty much finished, and the torpedoes that were sent harmlessly passed by everything, and that Samson is finished off. The Kuma, the New York, and the York, the New York, I should have said it just like that, are all in this area, and the Kuma's the easiest one to hit. The Kuma is a tier 4 Japanese cruiser. I love the Kuma. I would love to rebuy her and play her. I might do that. I might actually do that. She has torpedoes, so you need to keep that in mind. And all of her guns are center aligned, or very nearly. So she can bring a lot of guns to bear when you're trying to engage her. Enemy York is on the side of the map, bumping into it. He has come to nearly a complete stop, and he's basically going to die. And we get to see a little bit of damage. Very minimal damage, by the way. You kind of need fires whenever you're using your destroyer guns on anything that is remotely large. Sometimes you can hit the superstructure in the right spot and actually do nearly full damage. Obviously that's a lot harder than if you were to get a consistent broadside citadel penetration, in my opinion. The Tier 4 Kuma, which technically should not be in this game, he was put in this game from his team, is running away. Don't blame him. The Mahan actually has more firepower than the Kuma. And it looks like he wants to use his torpedoes. Now, here is a issue with the replay. He has probably selected the New York, so he's aiming based on the indicator. Unfortunately, that is not a command that is shared in the replay, so it appears that he's just blindly sending torpedoes towards the New York, when in actuality, he can see exactly where he needs to send them, towards the New York. And I also noticed, interesting strategy, he sends one set of his 2 torpedo sets whenever he's playing. It's a little different than me. I kind of do an all-in, and I kind of regret the all-in in situations exactly like this, when the target doesn't need them all. But he does get pretty lucky. The New York is going to, slams into those torpedoes and dies, and he's almost going to get killed by a friendly minikaze. Jeez. Whew. I can only interpret that as he wanted to kill him. That was directly at him. And FLX didn't appreciate it. So, they've pretty well dominated C area. Moving towards B, it would really help to capture B and put this game out of reach for the enemy. Interestingly, there's an enemy York. Another one. 2 enemy Yorks on their team. Man, you got a crapshoot if you got 2 Yorks on your team. It's just a terrible ship. You can't say anything other than that. And this particular game happened on the European server cluster. And there's a ship in the game that I've never seen before. The Polish destroyer, which has been available for a couple months at this point, I think, on the European server, is actually not available for us yet, and I've never run into it, so it's interesting. If you have a replay of a really good game in that, I would really like to see that. And his torpedoes just destroy the York. 3 make contact, and barely alive. Probably had used damage control, and he flooded out. They're going to capture B. And an enemy Nicholas, another enemy Nicholas shows up. And you got to take the Nicholas out, obviously. The Nicholas is a Tier 5 U.S. destroyer. Not quite as good as the Mahan at this point because of the buffs that it has received. The Mahan actually has great range on the torpedo systems. I believe he has the range upgrade. I'm pretty much assuming all of the things. I have no idea the module layouts of this. You notice I didn't go through any of that. I just introduced it as, FLX in the Mahan, because I don't know anything else other than that. I know it's European because his score screens, which you will see, is in German, I believe. And he's successful at capturing B. The Nicholas dropped a ton of smoke, kept moving through it, so didn't really make any use of it. And as he's moving away and around the island, the Mahan gets a little bit more damage, but not a killing shot. Enemy New York is stationary, it looks like right now, or very nearly. It's a U.S. battleship. It's basically stationary already. Not so. Yeah, you can do your jokes, okay? Okay. Also, the enemy Polish destroyer, the Bleskowik, is in the area, and yes, that is 110% the correct pronunciation. I'm pretty sure. And it's a real choice. Should I go after a destroyer, or should I go after a battleship? Well, a destroyer is lower health, lower armor, and overall an easier target for a destroyer to take out. And he makes the right choice. He goes after the enemy Polish destroyer. He is only using his front guns, which he's doing quite well. He's able to knock out propulsion, I don't believe the Polish destroyer has the ability to use damage control anymore. Unfortunately, he's also got an ally who's doing a ton of damage to FLX, and he sends out torpedoes. Hard to port, hard to port. Come on, okay. Whew. He's just barely far enough away to completely avoid all those torpedoes. If he was half a kilometer, if he was just a little bit closer, he would have had to deal with going through the torpedo field, but it worked out in the end. He is doing a ton of damage, and he takes out the enemy Nicholas. He earns Confederate and barely misses that window for double strike. The New York is barely alive, using his heel. Near max range firing, and probably not going to land these. The velocity of the U.S. destroyers is notoriously awful, but torpedoes will finish off the enemy New York. So FLX got 4 kills, Confederate 5 torpedo strikes, 3 floods, 4 fires, and a ton of credits. And look at that base XP! 3,113 at a Tier 7 game? Oh yeah, great, great game. Around 80,000 points of damage, fantastic game. You can't ask for more from a destroyer game. You go for the objectives, you deny enemy destroyers from taking objectives, and you eliminate targets. I hope you enjoyed seeing this replay in the Mahan by FLX. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.